We're starting to see some encouraging signs in the bond sector. And while this should be very encouraging news for anybody who is allocated to a traditionally conservative portfolio, since a lot of people have some portion of their portfolio in fixed income, this is welcome news for a lot of people. So on the screen right now, I have TLT, which is the iShares 20-year bond ETF. And I want to highlight the fact that it gets a yield of approximately 4.65%. But look at this drawdown from just a couple years ago. Back in 2020, we started to experience a drawdown in the bond sector. And if your portfolio was not being actively managed, you experienced a pretty nasty drawdown if you were allocated to long-term bonds. And this has been in a drawdown ever since. Well, we're starting to see some encouraging signs. Now, before I go any further, I want to explain something about technical analysis. When we study price charts, we recognize that price charts are not predictive. They are suggestive. So what I'm showing you suggests some good news, but it's not guaranteed. Anytime you're invested in the stock market, the bond market, the crypto market, whatever, nothing is guaranteed. The only thing that is certain is uncertainty. But let me show you what we're seeing. One of the very first chart patterns you would study if you begin the study of technical analysis is a pattern that is called a head and shoulders. Typically, we talk about head and shoulders tops, but this is a head and shoulders bottom. What I want to highlight for you here is at the bottom, this would be the head, and we have a left shoulder over here and a right shoulder over here. In the classical technical analysis tradition, one thing that chartists will sometimes do is they'll measure a price objective. Now, we typically don't use price objectives in the way that we trade and we manage client assets, but let me show you how this would apply to TLT. Traditionally, when you look at an inverse head and shoulders bottom or a regular head and shoulders top, you would measure the distance from the neckline to the lowest part of the head. In this case, it's about 22%. That would then suggest that if the price breaks through that neckline, that's where the price objective would be for, in this case, TLT. Well, that's a pretty attractive trend. Now, I would certainly contend that the bond market has never really been, quote unquote, safe. There's really no such thing as a safe investment. And one of our convictions is that every asset in your portfolio should be actively monitored if you're paying an active management fee. That's why we have not been participating in a lot of this bond market drawdown, because the trend is down. How valuable is a yield of 4.6% if the principal value is going down by 50%? In general, we're not interested in any asset class unless the trend is positive. But we're starting to see some encouraging signs in the bond space. And this head and shoulders, this inverse head and shoulders, has been pretty prevalent pattern throughout the bond space. This is IEF. This is the iShares 7 to 10-year Treasury bond, and we see a very, very similar pattern. Some encouraging signs for the bond sector, and if you are traditionally in a conservative allocation, this should be some good news. Now, again, we believe in active portfolio management. Active means active. Active means we need to pay attention to everything in your portfolio and respond accordingly. If nobody's paying attention to your portfolio, by all means, reach out.